saying, oh, great. Okay. Hi, Boker Tov, everybody. We're starting today with the Baal Shem Tov, and we got yesterday up to Parshat Vayetze Vav, and let me read it. Vani Hashem Elei Avram Avicha Velohei Yitzchak. I am Hashem, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Yitzchak. Pireisha Baal Shem Tov. So the Baal Shem Tov explains the Lekach Anu Amrim Elei Avram Elei Yitzchak Elei Yaakov. Why do we repeat the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob? Bein Anu Amrim Elei Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Because it would be.
Chaim.
Yes.
You record.
Yes, I know. I see the
Yeah,
record.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know where it came out of the blue. Maybe Neil did something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, but thanks for telling me. Because it could have said the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and we would have understood the same thing. Lahavot, it's to teach she'al yismoch adam al chakirat v'avodat aviv, that a person should not depend on one's parents' examination. In other words, one's parents' relationship to Hashem. That's what he's. But rather, one should make their own relationship. Elei Avram, Elei Yitzchak, Elei Yaakov. Everyone should make their own relationship to Hashem. V'chein Yitzchak v'Yaakov lo samchu atzmam al chakirat v'avodat Avram Avinu. And Yitzchak and Yaakov, they didn't rely on the relationship, you could say, the examination of Avraham, our father. Rather, they examined, if you want, they researched for themselves the unity of the Creator and how to serve the Creator. And that's why we say Elohei in each one of them. And now let us, okay? To summarize, every person has to make their own relationship with God, and they can't rely on the relationship of their father. Okay. And next is Zion. Could everyone mute themselves, please? Could everyone please mute themselves?
That's me, it's my phone.
Well, mute yourself, please, then. Thank you. Neil, so mute yourself.
I got to 1 minute, figure out how to do it.
We don't see you.
Got it.
We do not see you.
You do not see me? A minute. Okay, you should see me.
No.
We see a paper, there's a paper.
Oh, isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's your hand.
Why is
Now it's your hand.
That's strange. It's going out the back. Yeah. Why is it going out the back?
Because you have to use the
All
camera.
right. I see what the thing is I have to push. Oh, hello. There's Jaime.
Boker Tov, Boker Or.
Boker Or. Okay, but you heard everything I said, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sydney, you heard everything?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And now you can see me as well. Okay, now Zion. The Hine. Could everyone mute themselves, please?
I'm trying to.
Hine Yedua Shavot Haim Chesed Gvura Teferet. We know that that our forefathers are kindness, strength, and Teferet. Avram represents Chesed, Yitzchak Gvura, and Yaakov Teferet. Could everyone mute themselves, please?
I'm trying to 1 minute. I'm just
Neil, you're our technical genius. Well, what does it take to mute yourself?
1
You want me to
minute.
come over there?
Go out, come back in.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah, I'll just, yeah,
Go out and come back in, please.
hold on. I'll just reboot my phone.
Okay. So we know that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are Chesed, Bur, and Teferet. Avraham haya midato Chesed, shaya gomel Chesed bohevet habriot umekarvan leemunat Hashem yitborach lavodato. Avraham always gave Chesed, did Chesed, and he loved people, and he brought them close to faith in Hashem. Ki midat Chesed hu avat kiyadua. Because what chesed means, what kindness means, is love. Well, that's interesting. Kindness is love. I guess not necessarily. Kindness can just be the way you act. You know, there are people who just act kindly, but they don't really have love for people. But I suppose if you do love, you're going to act with chesed. So one can fake it, but genuine love acts with chesed. Umetov shaya davuk b'midah zot mod. And since Avram was very tied in with his kindness, hikir v'isig et boro. He recognized and he perceived his creator. Sheyesh manhig v'elohei ba'olam Elohai ba'olam. That there is a master and a God in the world. V'hine Yitzchak hagam shekebel v'lamad me'Avram aviv sheyesh Elohai ba'olam. Even though he learned from his father that God is in the world, im kol zeh ratzah leidal lasig me'atzmo yediat haboreh. Nonetheless, with all of this, he wanted to know and perceive for himself. Not enough that he heard from his father that, you know, there's a God who runs the world, who's all kindness. He wanted to experience the relationship with God and the kindness of God by himself. Like it says in Divrei Hayamim, Dat Elohei Avicha, know the God of your father, not, you know, kind of inherit the relationship, but know yourself, the God of your father. And it shouldn't just be an inheritance to you. Mitzvat anashim melomda. You know, just something that comes natural to you from your parents, from your father. And therefore, Yitzchak, he attached himself to the quality of yira, of strength. Umekoach zehiruto hikir v'isig Hashem yitborach b'atzmo. All right, we're gonna have to say an explanation here. Let me read the words first. And from the power of his carefulness, you know, yira is also carefulness, being alert and everything like that. He recognized and perceived Hashem himself. I mean, I'm gonna levad mimashaya lo b'kabbalah me'aviv. Other than what he knew from his father. So it's not like he rejected what his father told him. It's just that he used his own qualities also to make a relationship with Hashem. I mean, I'm going to say an explanation, and please argue with me, as Baruch Hashem, you often do, our dear people in our learning. Avraham was all kindness. Yitzchak understood himself, and he saw that, you know, although certainly he had the quality of kindness within him, but his main outstanding quality was yira, however you want to understand that, a certain, as it said here, carefulness, or a certain alertness, or something like that. Since that was his main quality, so he said, I should attach myself to Hashem with that quality, because that's my main quality. And that's how I should know Hashem. V'hine Yaakov ra'a ve'eino seichel shemina hechrach sheyesh בהנהגת העולם מידה הממוצעת והמכריע בין חסד וגבורה. He saw that with his mind's eye, with his intellect, that there's a quality that's between kindness and between gvura. And what is that? She'ilu lo kein lo היה העולם מתקיים אם היה נוטה לאחד משני קצוות הנ"ל. Because if there wasn't something that's between the two of them, if the world was only kindness or was only gvura, was only strength, then the world wouldn't last. I mean, for a while, but not very long. We can see that ourselves, even with something simple. A relationship with our children. If all it is kindness, then after a while they'll know, like, we can do whatever we want, and there won't be much of a relationship. They'll, just allow themselves whatever they want to allow themselves. If they go with gvura, with strength, then they'll argue about everything you tell them, or I don't know everything, but they'll argue with you in the ways that you want to raise them and make them into decent people and everything, as is our habit as parents. And also there won't be a relationship there. So the relationship that you need in the world is, in addition to chesed and gvura, the midline, the balance between chesed and gvura, which we call tiferet. L'chein hitabek b'midat tiferet. And that's why Yaakov, his quality that he was most, that he specialized in, if you like, was the quality of Tiferet. And he's going to explain to us what that is. Shehu rachamim machriya ben chesed ugvura. And that's rachamim, which is the midline between kindness, which is, all outreach, all giving, and gvura, which is all limitation and everything like that. And rachamim is putting them together. Sometimes you give when it's appropriate. Sometimes you don't give when it's appropriate. I mean, when we think about relationships with our children, that's the way it is. Sometimes it is appropriate to give. If your child is, being very sensitive and something happened in school, they're getting a hard time, then of course you give them total love, and hugs and kisses and everything like that. If on the other hand, they're getting out of line and doing and saying things that shouldn't be said, then you tell them that, sorry, we don't act like that. That's not the way to act, and we won't allow it in our family. But the way that the more constant way that you want to act is a balance between those two, where on the one hand there's kindness, and you let the child know that he or she is loved. On the other hand, there's limitation, and you let the child know that in spite of the love, then there's also the limitations in love. Umetoch zot hamida hikir v'hisig yoter me'avotav. And because of this quality of Tiferet that Yaakov had, he perceived more than his parents. So that's pretty good, right? I mean, for us, when I say pretty good, I mean it's opening up kind of new areas for us. Like, in spite of everything, I think I might have thought, if I hadn't learned otherwise, that Avraham was the greatest of the fathers, or Yitzchak, because of his experience by the Akedah, had a greatness about him. But we're being told that the greatest of the fathers is Yaakov, because he was a balance between Chesed and Gvura. And in fact, in the Gemara, it says that he's the greatest of the fathers what it says, and I guess it's just an example of why, is mitato shleima. Like, his children were all tzaddikim. Avraham had Yitzchak and Yishmael, and Yishmael had, his rough side, and Yitzchak had Yaakov and Esav, and Esav had his rough side, but all the children of Yaakov were Beseder. I mean, listen, what do we mean by Beseder? Obviously, each one had his own qualities and everything like that, but all of them were pretty close to a midline, all of the 12 sons and Dinah. V'zeu shehu bachir sheba'avot, and the fact that he is the chosen, that Yaakov is the chosen of the Avot, like it says in the Midrash, ki b'zeh mitnahega olam b'tmidut, because that's how the world always wants to act, always wants to be. That is with the midline, with the balance, with Chesed and Gvura in a state of balance. K'moshe Amar Rabbeinu Zal, like our rabbis said, our wise people said, our sages said, Rei she'eino olam mitkayem b'din v'shiteithi mo midat harachamim. God saw that the world would not last if it was only with the quality of din, with the quality of limitation and everything like that. So he added to it rachamim. And we try to live in a world of din. He added, a world of chesed with din, and the balance between it being rachamim. Okay, let's leave it at that for now and go into Rav Kook. Any questions, any comments? Okay, and now we go into Rav Kook. I think, let's get there. I think we said we're gonna do that one that we did yesterday again. Okay, let me do this. I'm going to do it rather fast because I don't, to tell you the truth, I told you I asked someone who knows a lot about the commentaries on Rav Kook, if there's a commentary on the Shmona Kvatzim. I tend to doubt it because Shmona, 8 notebooks, a commentary, it would have to be like 12 volumes long, if not much more than that. But anyway, no, it would be more than that, of course. So I'm going to do again the one that we did yesterday. Yesh siguf sichli she'adam tzarich lefamim l'shtamesh bo. There's a certain limitation, let's call it. Siguf is, when people don't eat, they don't drink in order to, it's kind of an ascetic way of dealing with their personalities, in order to straighten out their personalities. So there's an intellectual keeping away from things, limiting oneself, that a person has to use sometimes. This was a hard one yesterday, so that's why I'm doing it again. L'shachrer et musagav me'eshibud she'aseichel e'enoshi, in order to free one's perceptions from that which the human intellect, she hasichlut hi bo yitera al hachochma, where whatever it is, the mind is greater than the chochma. Mishabed otam tamid. It's always the seichel enoshi is is on top of the other parts of the intellect and the other parts of the personality. V'zeu hamekor shel ha'hachshacha shekol iyun mitchashech mitzlalav atzmeim. And that's the source of the darkness, where anything you look into becomes dark because of its own clouds. Adam litgaber al afela zo. And when a person wants to get past this darkness, this intellectual kind of darkness, because it got whatever, it didn't become clear. Matchil gal shel yisurim ruchanim levo alav. Then a wave of spiritual troubles hits him. All right, I don't see that I understand any better today than I did yesterday. V'kanhu makom hagvura elyona, and one has to go back to retreat into elevated strength. Sha'adam mitgaber al yitzro aruchani. A person has to strengthen himself on his spiritual Yetzer. We talked about that yesterday, what that might mean. V'shover et kol mechitzot habarzel shebeino uvein aviv shebeshamayim. Just has to get strong and break the walls between him and God. Like just say, forget it. I'm not going into this part of my personality, that part of my personality. I want God. I want connection. Ha'emet v'shalom elyon b'hu mekoram. Okay. Truth and peace, elevated truth and peace in their highest places. Let's go on to the next one. I leave a question mark here. Some of these pieces are difficult. Shin Chaf Aleph 321. Rachvot alev sheba lefamim lachnis et ha'olam kulo kol enoshiyut kula b'chlal hachiba hamiyuchada hamitgaleh liyisrael hi tzricha b'dika. Okay, you'll see why I'm laughing after I translate. The expansion of the heart that sometimes comes to a person, where one's heart is expanded, in order to include within one's heart the whole world, all of mankind, and with all the love that's revealed to Israel, that has to be checked out. Like, it has to be looked upon with a critical eye. Kishakara shel hakodesh hamitzuyan asher l'skulat Yisrael omedet b'tzivyona, when the recognition of elevated holiness stands in its, in its power, if you like, in its strong position. That's a recognition of elevated holiness. Umetoch behiuta mitpashetet achiba va'ava ve'ayin tova al kol goy va'adam yachad, and because of its clarity, this love spreads out, with generosity on every nation and every individual. Zoe midato shel Avram Avinu. Here we are. That is the quality of Avram Avinu. Whoever he looked at with a kind eye, with a loving eye. Not that Avram Avinu, when we say that, we tend to think like perhaps there was too much, but he did, he did after all understand the world and everything, but he tried to look at the world with a loving eye. Av Hamon Goyim. That's why that's why Hashem added the Hey to his name, from Avram to Avraham, the father of many nations. V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpechot adama u'v'zarecha, and all the families of the earth will be blessed in you and in your children and your seed. I mean, I've wondered, I never really got a an answer to it. I mean, I thought about it myself and I've asked, why does it say in the Chumash, when it said in the Torah, when it says that all the families of the earth will be blessed in you? Why doesn't it say all the nations of the earth or all the people of the earth? Why dafka the families? Like, what is special about saying the families? Anyway, if you have an answer, please tell us, or if you think about it and come up with an answer, then tell us tomorrow or send me a...
Hi.
Yes.
Maybe because families, they're supposed to be close to each other, to know each other. And yeah, our folks, yeah, we are far away from each other. Because
Okay, but let me, okay.
Maybe because of it.
Let me try out your answer. In other words, what you're saying is, if it had said all the nations of the earth, well, nations within the nations, there's trouble. You know,
Yeah,
within every
also.
nation. I mean, you came from Poland originally, so we know that you got your,
Yeah.
like you have now, you say, the very conservative and
Yeah.
the very liberal, and in every nation, you got, you know, those of this personality and those of that personality. So, but when you're
But
talking about the
families also,
families of the earth,
families also very often
oh,
fight
then
with each other.
yeah, okay, because I was going to say that, but nonetheless, let me not give up what you said yet, Eva.
Yeah.
In families, of course, we know there's fights in families, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, some of us know that you know, within this family, this one doesn't talk to that one, and that one doesn't talk to this one, and you know,
Yeah.
they're mad at each other. But for the most part, not always, for the most part, if there's trouble, then they come together.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If there's
That
illness
is so.
or something, they come
Sure.
together. So maybe that's part of it. I'll repeat the question. Why, when it says about Avram Avinu, how he relates to the rest of the world, why does it say, and all the families of the earth will be blessed in you and in your seed and in your descendants? I'm going to go on. אבל יש יסוד התרחבותה של חיבה זו באה מתוך כוחות הרגש והאפלה והפעלת אור הקודש של הכרת הסגולה הישראלית העליונה. But there's a basis of this expansion, how we started, remember the expansion of the heart, there's a basis of this expansion of love that comes from a weakness of emotion and a darkness of the light of holiness that is the special quality of Israel. The azhi our seat, and then it's poisonous. I'm going to go back, of course. B'tochen pulata hu malei hirus nora, and the content of what it does is full of terrible poison, destruction. V'tzarich litzrachek memeno k'mipnei shor hamuad, and you have to distance yourself from it like you would stay away from a dangerous bull, a dangerous animal. Okay, so what does he say? That there's this expansion of heart that's very nice, you know, was the quality of Avram Avinu, giving love to everyone and everything like that. But there's a type of expansion which comes from a weakness of emotion and a darkness of the light of holiness. In other words, one does not, I'm trying to understand it myself. If anyone has insight, please say. But there's a type of expansion of the heart of a certain love that comes from a weakness of emotion. Like not, because emotion, after all, does make its distinctions, love for this one, not love for that one. This person is not a nice person. All right, I may love the godliness that's deep within that person, but I'm not gonna on an everyday level treat that person with love. So when there's this expansion, sometimes it comes from a weakness of emotion. You're just not distinguishing between certain types of people, and a darkness of the holiness, which doesn't extinguish, and that doesn't, did I say extinguish? Distinguish, and that is poisonous, and it makes for destruction. All right, I think we got it. Let me just finish the last few words, and I'll go back and summarize. V'she'iya yukat sha'ar l'didi chazile u'minagach ketorah. Okay, so stay away from, he says, these dangerous bulls, these dangerous animals. If not, you're going to get into trouble. He quotes from, it looks to me, he quotes from the Gemara. Looks like a quote from the Gemara. I'm not familiar with that quote. Okay, let us summarize. He said, of course, that there's an expansion of the heart that's really nice, where a person loves all of mankind and all the individuals. However, one has to be careful, he says, with an expansion of the heart, because the heart can expand in such a way that it doesn't differentiate between things in the world. In other words, everyone looks good, everyone looks nice. Oh, I don't, yeah, it's true that he does sometimes, this person does say things he shouldn't say and do things he shouldn't do. But, I love everybody. That's just the way I am. And I love everything. And we don't, and that is poisonous, he says. No, you have to distinguish between the things that are good and the things that are bad. Is Neil still with us? Probably not, huh? Let me take a look.
Yeah, I am.
So remember Neil, when we were, I've mentioned it before, but who knows who's listening, on the recording, when we were sitting in your office and there was the tragedy at Versailles hall at a wedding or a bar mitzvah in Versailles.
Yeah.
I
remember.
I forget, you probably remember who that guy is, but there was this guy sitting with us who was smiling. Oh, it's all for the good. It's all for the good. And you and me both, we didn't do it because we are such nice people, but or maybe we should have done it. You and me both just wanted to punch him. No, it's not for the good. What was it? 26 people got killed. 26 families are sitting Shiva, if not more. The married children and everything like that. What do you mean it's all for the good? And we didn't like that at all. And that's kind of comes from an expansion of the heart, which does not distinguish between what's going on in the world. There were people who built that building, and they were, how do we say it? They were criminal. Yeah. Well, okay. And they didn't do it right. Like oh no, it'll be okay. Now, shouldn't we work on it another day or two to make sure that the floor holds up? It'll be okay. No, that's not, you don't want to accept that. What?
Yeah, I'm just saying it was even worse than that. It was a whole technology. And also that the city had condemned it, and the city didn't follow through on closing it. They had put closure notices on it.
Oh, really?
And they just never enforced it.
Yeah. And here you had this person who kind of all he saw, and he saw with a loving eye, and I'm sure he thought, oh, what a tzaddik I am. Oh, it's people die. That's part of the world. It's all for the good. Everything's for the good.
He wasn't so happy because his wife divorced him, and his kids don't talk. Whatever. Anyways,
what, his wife couldn't take his personality anymore.
There was an article about him in the back of the. They had interviews with people. in one of the newspapers, and then, and it's like, basically, everything fell apart for him, so I don't think he ended up saying that it was all for the good, but whatever.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Oh, you have a good memory. I mean, you remember his name even?
I have some of his stuff because he didn't pay for his shipment, so I have a bunch of his silver stuff.
Oh, I see. Yeah, stuff that he didn't pay for. All right, let's do one more. Do one more piece. Yesh, short piece. Yeshnam dvarim ke'ele sh'aseichel levado efshar lo l'tzayram v'liknotam. There are certain things that the mind alone cannot kind of acquire them, cannot accept them. Ki im dafke ha'adam kulo im kol kochotav, kol chushav v'rigshotav. But a person, the whole person has to approach these things. A person with all of his power, with all of his senses, all of his emotions. The mind cannot be trusted to have a proper understanding of these things. But to acquire those types of things, to have a wise perception of them, then he says you need holiness, v'emuna gedolah, a lot of faith, u'ba'im al yada l'dveikut pnimit b'Hashem echad, and through that you come to cling to God. So to summarize this little piece, there are things that the mind alone, you cannot just trust your intellect. You have to put it together with your emotions and your senses and everything like that. And when you look at the world in that kind of holistic way, then you can you come to cling to the with an inner clinging to the one God. Okay. Well, maybe let's do one more now. I mean, just from the point of view of time, I think we'll be able to do it and get a good bit of Gemara in. כשאדם רוצה להשתחרר ממושגיו העצמיים, when a person wants to free himself from certain perceptions, personal perceptions, יש הוא מטשטש בזה את סגולותיו הרוחניים. So sometimes in wanting to get rid of certain things in his mind, in his perception, he clouds up within his personality certain spiritual things, and that's not good. Ki dafka al pi oto hatziviyon hamiyuchad lo al pi teva nishmato, because it's specifically through his special way of perceiving, through the special nature of his soul, yecholu lotzi min hakoach halapol et kishrono. He can bring out of the potential to the actual his talents. And if he wants to free himself from something that's within him, ovedu et habasis shebinyan haruchani shalo banui alav. He loses the basis that his spiritual building is built on. In other words, let's summarize, at least according to my understanding. Sometimes a person wants to free himself from certain things within, but those things are built into his personality, and those things are the things that make his talents come out. And if he frees himself, in other words, everyone has their talents, let us say, is somewhat hooked in with things in their personality, that if that's all there was in their personality, they would say, oy vey, is that what I'm all about? But when it's a part of his whole personality, then it manages to limit certain other things, and it manages to bring out other things. And if a person wants to free himself from certain basic things in his personality, then sometimes one loses, by freeing oneself from those basic things, one loses the ability to bring out one's talents. One loses something that kind of makes one's personality what it is, makes one's personality special and effective in the world. So you have to be careful when there's things in your personality, you say, I want that out altogether. I'm never going to be like this or never going to be like that again. So he seems to be saying one should say, I'm going to control those things in my personality and only bring those factors into play when they are really necessary. But don't just throw it out indiscriminately, because it could be necessary for certain very positive things in your personality. And his personality becomes flawed when he wants to free himself in this way. Much more than those people who just in general want to be faithful and free. And there are those whose kavana is worthwhile, but their acts are not. In other words, they can talk the talk, so to speak, but in walking the walk, it doesn't come out right. V'tov nikle ve'eved lo mitkabed v'chaser lechem. So good is he who can control himself, and it works for him, than someone who has kind of too much control and he's lacking food. I don't exactly understand how that phrase ties into this, but at any rate, one should be careful about indiscriminately throwing out parts of one's personality which one should not throw out. Neil, you sound like you want to say something.
Please let Wendy in.
Oh, okay, let's see. Let me see. How do I do that? That's not the way to do it. Neil, can you let Wendy in?
She is in.
She's
She's
in now. Okay, hi, Wendy. I didn't do it. Neil, did you let her in?
Yes.
Well, you're a good man. And if you can set us up in a way that I would see when someone wants to get in, so that would be terrific also. All right, so let's stop there for 10 minutes. Today is the 28th, and we'll get back. It's now about 11:35. We'll get back at about 11:45, 11:46 for Gemara. See you then.
Chaim, can you hear me? Because I can't hear you. Can you see me?
1 second.
Oh, that's better. So I didn't know you'd started because I couldn't hear you.
Unmute. Now you should be able to hear me, right?
No, now I can hear you. So I didn't know when you started because I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, no, I don't know how that happened. Somehow the mute button got pushed. At any rate, all right, so I'll start again. What I had said already, that okay, unmuted, everything should be okay. The Rebbe Eliezer, was it? He freed his slave in order, and that would be Evet Knani. So I'll just say again, the halach, I think I said it yesterday, an Evet Ivri, a Jewish slave, and how does one become a Jewish slave, so to speak? By not being able to pay back a loan. So what do you have to do if you can't pay back a loan? Then you took a loan out from a certain family, then you go and you work in that family's home. And that's the one that's Rav Kook. You remember, we learned about it. If you were with us at the time, he said, oh, and here you'll work with a Jewish family, and you'll see, here's a Jewish family that seems to be able to keep their finances together, and it'll, give you some insight into how to keep your own finances together, maybe, or whatever, however Rav Kook puts it. But here, a Jewish slave is always Jewish. Just he has to pay off debts or, whatever he has to do. An Evet Knani, as I said yesterday or the day before, when he becomes a slave to you, a non-Jewish slave, then he has to go to the mikveh, number one. And if he says, no, sorry, I don't go to the mikveh, you cannot, you have to sell him to someone else. You sell him to a non-Jew. He cannot be with you, he cannot be your slave. So an Evet Knani, he goes to the mikveh, and then he does the mitzvahs that are not bound by time, like mezuzah, birkat hamazon, and so on and so forth. He's not totally Jewish, but as you see, he's kind of in a no man's land there, a little Jewish, a little not Jewish. And when you free him, although I think we learn it today, or pretty soon, the Torah, Dafka says, don't free him. But oh yeah, right, yeah, we're going to have it right now. When you free him, he becomes Jewish. So what he did was, they didn't have a minyan in the shul. He freed his slave, and he made up the minyan. He made up the 10th. Now we're going further in the Gemara. So again, it's on Mem Zayin Amud Beit. Oh, I'd say it's 3/4 of the way down the page. How did he do that? How could he free a slave, an Evet Knani, a non-Jewish slave? Ha'amar Rav Yehuda, we know that Rav Yehuda said, whoever frees his slave is doing a sin. He's being over on a mitzvah taseh. I'll explain that in a minute. Shnemar l'olam behem tavoidu. They will serve you forever. So there's in relation to the world, if you like, of aveiras in mitzvahs, you have lo taseh, a lo taseh, a don't do, like don't eat bacon, don't eat pig. That's a lo taseh. And if a person does, obviously, they've done a sin. You also have, however, put on tefillin. And if you don't put on tefillin, then you've also done a sin, but that's called being over on an aseh. It's a mitzvah aseh. It's a positive mitzvah to put on tefillin. If you don't do it, then you've done the sin of not putting on tefillin. Doing the negative, it may be intuitive or not, I don't know, but I'll say it out. Doing the negative is more severe sin than not doing the positive. Yeah, like we have, whatever, we have examples of that. So he said, so how could he be allowed to free his slave? You're not supposed to free your slave. It says it in, I think it's in the Navi. Let me look to see where it says it exactly. No, and it's not in the Navi. It's in Vayikra. So how could he do it when you're not allowed to do it? So the answer is that l'dvar mitzvah shane. You're not allowed to do it, but if it's for a mitzvah, then there's a leeway, there's a flexibility there, and you would be allowed to free your slave. Then the Gemara doesn't give up. It says, but wait a minute. Mitzvah ba ve'vahi. Okay, good. So you did the mitzvah, but it's called the mitzvah ba ve'ra. You managed to do the mitzvah, but only through doing an avera. Like an example that is kind of more classic for us is, let's say a person robs the bank and gives part of the money to charity. Okay, he did a mitzvah, he gave it to charity, but the only way he managed to do that mitzvah was to rob the bank. So it's a mitzvah haba'ah ba'avera. It's a mitzvah that came through doing a sin. And the Gemara answers that you're right. Okay, so you can do it for a dvar mitzvah, but still, it's a mitzvah that came through a sin, and you shouldn't do it. So he says, mitzvah de rabim shane. No, a mitzvah that's for the rabim, for the community, is different. And here the mitzvah was done to allow people to pray in a minyan, and that's different. I just want to go over that again. It's a little hazy in my mind. So we asked.
It's very interesting because we have today people. It's a real problem. Very wealthy businessmen. I'm not going to name any names who've behaved in a very dishonest way, maybe to their workers or to their stockholders, whoever it might be. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And yet they're great philanthropists in the Jewish world. Oh, you okay? And we have that today. It's a big thing today. You have these people who, really the way they behave is a chilul Hashem, and yet they're great philanthropists. So it's a very, very, very contemporary argument.
And it's very problematic for us. As a matter of fact, I remember. I don't have that much to do with organizations, but I remember in Toronto there was a yeshiva, and yeshivas are always trying to get money, and especially it was a rather big yeshiva, so not all the kids can afford, their parents can afford to send them there, but they had a policy that they were very particular about who they took donations from. That's pretty good, right? They were very particular who they took donations from, and they wouldn't take it from people who did shady things in business. Can you imagine people being like that? Oh, you want to give us a donation? Well, that's very nice, but we'd like to check you out first to make sure that your donations are coming from, good business practices. And not in a different way. So yeah, you're quite right. And I guess what we'd say about something like that whatever they gain, those people that let's say they do give tzedakah and things like that, whatever they gain by giving the tzedakah, whatever to speak childishly, whatever mitzvah points they gain, they lose by having bad business practices. So you're quite right about that. Yeah. Okay. Then we say,
Chaim,
yes.
yeah, that is the same as very often we are reading in the paper, for example, that some people washing money. That you stealing, you have money from very bad things, but you give for tzedakah, for something very good, and this is washing your money.
Yeah, what do they call it? Whitewash? I forget what they call it. There's a word for it.
Yeah, washing money. Yeah, that's, yeah, bad money make you good money or something like this.
Yeah, whitewashing your money.
Yeah, that is. Yeah,
and
but
it's,
from bad source, the money comes from very wrong, bad source, and you are giving for some organization, tzedakah, for synagogues, for schools. I don't know, but so is that something like this?
yeah. Yeah, and I guess the way reason people do it is they
Yeah.
feel a certain amount of guilt for making their money in that way,
Yeah,
and they figure if they give tzedakah,
Yeah.
maybe they're cleaning up
Yeah.
their habits or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, not so good.
Not so good, no.
Yeah. Okay, let's go further in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Amr B'Shua ben Levi. Reb Shua ben Levi says, "La'olam yashkim adam lebeit hakneset kedei sheyizkeh v'yimaneh im asara harishonim." A person should always get up early and go to the Beit Knesset, when they're going to have a prayer service, in order that one should be among the 10 first people. And says the Gemara of Shafilu, Meya ba'im acharav, even if 100 people come after him, Kibel alav schar kulam, he gets the reward of everyone. Oh, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, says the Gemara. If a person is among the first 10 and 100 come after him, he gets the reward of the 100 people who come after him. So the Gemara says, schar kulam, he gets the reward of those 100 people. Salkadatach, that's what you think. Elaema, rather say, notnim lo schar keneged kulam. He doesn't get their reward. They get their own reward, but he gets rewarded just like all of those 100 get rewarded. Like they get their own reward, but he also gets reward just like all of them. So that's for someone who's among the first 10 who comes to the Beit Knesset. Okay. Maybe there was, people were coming late and they had to wait a long time till they got a minyan. So the rabbis, kind of gave their own encouragement to people. Try to be from the first 10, and we, the rabbis, give a blessing that you'll get great blessing for that. Okay, now we have a rather strange piece of Gemara, at least on the surface of it. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna said, Tisha v'Aaron mitztafim. If you have 9 people in the Beit Knesset, and you have the Aron Kodesh, with the Sifrei Torah in it, that Aron Kodesh makes up the 10th person. Amar le Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said to him, Aron Gavrahu, is the Aron Kodesh, the holy ark that has the Torahs, is that a person? Ella Amar Rav Huna, rather Rav Huna said, Tisha nirim kasara mitztafim. If there are 9 people, but they look like 10, then you can count them as a full minyan. All right, so I've never seen anyone do that, but the most I've ever seen, in a place where, like in Canada, I don't think we ever did it, but we talked about doing it, was, they had heard, they had read they had learned that if you have a kid and you give him a Sefer Torah, he can count as the 10th to the minyan. You know, when we had a minyan that wasn't making it to 10. So you take a kid, obviously can't be a little kid, has to be able to hold the Sefer Torah. So let's say someone who's 11 years old, and you give him a Sefer Torah, he sits down, give him a Sefer Torah, he can count as your 10th person. But here we're talking about where it's not a kid with a Sefer Torah, it's where 9 looks like 10. So somehow, if you have 9 and there's a Aron Kodesh in the room, it looks more important, and at first glance, it looks like there's 10 people there.
Chaim, what age would you be able to do that with a child with a Sefer Torah to make up the 10th?
Well, we're going to say later, just 1 minute. Or I don't know if we'll get there today, so I'll say it to you now. It's where the child has an understanding of who you pray to.
Right.
Like those that you pray to God. Like you say to him, and who's God? What's God? He'll say to you, oh, God is, created the world and has input into our lives. So it would be someone who reaches that kind of an age. But as I say, I've heard people say that they were in places where they did it, but I was never anywhere where they actually did it, I don't think. There are those who say, when does 9 look like 10? Remember when there's when they're in a room with an Aron Kodesh? That's when they're all grouped together. Please mute yourselves, friends. That's when they're all grouped together. If Amrile and others say differently. Ki mibadre, that's when they're spread apart. So interesting, right? The exact opposite. One person says, when does 9 look like 10? When they're all grouped together and, is it 9 there or 10 there? And the other person says, no, when they're spread apart, then you send, and it looks like there's more maybe because they're taking up more space in the room. And here's a strange opinion. Amar Rebbe Ami, Rebbe Ami said, Shnayim v'Shabbat mitztarfin. 2 people on Shabbat can make up a zimun. Shabbat makes the 3rd person. So 2 people with Shabbat on Shabbat can say Rabbatai Nevarech and everything like that. Amrle Rav Nachman, the same argument. Rav Nachman says, V'Shabbat Gavra? Who is Shabbat? Is Shabbat a man? That you can take Shabbat and make him and say that now there's 3 people. Ela Amar Rabami. Rabami said, it's like this. Shnei Talmidei Chachamim hamechadedim zeh et zeh b'halacha mitztarfim. That if it's not just 2, regular Jews, but it's 2 Chachamim, 2 people who, are very knowledgeable in halacha, and they're always arguing with each other. They sharpen each other in halacha. That's how it says in the Gemara. By arguing with each other, they sharpen each other's minds. So that's when 2 can be like 3 and make up zimun. Machvei Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda added, he said the following. He said, Kigonana Rav Sheshet. Like me and Rav Sheshet, because we're always arguing with each other in halacha. So if there's 2 of us, you can count us as 3 for a zimun. Machvei Rav Sheshes, and Rav Sheshes pointed to Rav Chisda, and he said, Kagonana Rav Chisda, like me and Rav Chisda. So I guess each of them was kind of honoring the other, or each of us was, each of them was, how do you say it? Was was making a point of saying that I and Rav Sheshis, we always argue and we're sharpening each other's minds, and kind of each of them was saying, I have nachas learning with Rav Sheshet, I have nachas learning with Rav Chisda, and so on. Now, here's Wendy, a question that's similar to the one you asked before. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Katan poreach mizamnin alav. A younger boy who's growing, and we're going to get to what that means, you can make a zimun with him. In other words, two regular people. And I said that by my Yemenite relatives and Sfardim do it. You do that. You can make a zimun on him. Tanya namihachi. We learned in a Braita. Katan shevi shtei siagot mizamren alav. If there's a boy, at what age? Wendy asked before. About when can you count him in a minyan? This is a little bit different. At what age can you take a boy who's under the age of bar mitzvah and include him in the zimun, make him the third for the zimun? That's when he has 2 pubic hairs. Now, of course, this gets us into a problem of tznius, right? Like, what are we gonna, hold on a second. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna, excuse me, I want to plug in my phone, because otherwise it's gonna do what it did till we get back in. Who knows how much time.
Sorry, Chaim, I missed what you said before. What did you say your relatives do?
If there's 2 people who ate bread, then you'll take a boy who's under the age of bar mitzvah, and you'll include him as the third. So you can make a zimun. And the Gemara just started saying, put on your seatbelt, Wendy, but you've been with the guys for a while here. That's when that boy who's under the age of bar mitzvah has 2 pubic hairs. Wendy, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you're going to discover it.
Well, you tell him, please. No, I'm joking. That's exactly what the Gemara says. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to say to him, please, could I walk around the corner with you and take a look to see if you have 2 pubic hairs? No, that's not sneistic either. Certainly, whatever. So what are you going to do? Gemara is sensitive to that.
I thought he had to hold a chumash or something.
Well, no, in relation to this, he doesn't have to hold a chumash. That's in relation to making up a minyan. They say if he holds a sefer Torah, or as you said, I've heard people say, or holds a chumash, or something like that. At any rate, but they say like this, if he has 2 pubic hairs, then you include him in the zimun, or make him, not just include him, he makes up the zimun. If he doesn't have 2 pubic hairs, he doesn't, but, says the Gemara, ve'ein medaktakim bekotin. Like, we don't go checking him out, We, I guess we could ask him, but in general, if you see that he's getting close to the age of puberty, then you take it that he probably has 2 pubic hairs. I mean, I would think that, I don't want to go and tell things from when I was growing up, but often when a boy is 10 years old, 11 years old, that's the first thing, the first signs of puberty are like that. The hagufa kasha. But there's a problem here. There's a contradiction here. Amart, you said, hevi shtei sagotein, lo hevi, lo. If he has 2 pubic hairs, you include him. If he doesn't, you don't include him. And Bahadur Tani, and then the Breita said, "Ein medaktakim bekaton," like you don't really get strict about it. You just take things for granted. Latuye mai. What are you trying to include in the fact that you don't get strict? You don't really check them, and so on and so forth. Latuye koton poreach. So that's to include a child who's showing some signs of puberty. You know, he might have little hairs on the side by his ears, or his voice may have started to break, or whatever. He has some signs, so you don't have to go checking him out. You can include him. I wonder, why doesn't it say you ask him and you believe him? You know, or maybe, you know what? Maybe it's embarrassing. Maybe it's embarrassing to ask a kid, "Do you have 2 pubic hairs?" Yeah, what are you going to say, Wendy?
So what about the point you made before that if they've got a good enough understanding of who Hashem is, so is that not relevant here?
No, that has to do with whether you can count them into a minyan. You know, whether you can take a kid like that and give him a Sefer Torah or a Chumash and say you're counted in a minyan. It has to be someone who understands who Hashem is. No, that's not relevant here. No.
So what is this then? This is what is this then? I'm confused.
But for the zimun, for when there are 2 people laid to bed,
okay,
and you know, they want to make a zimun, and let's say there's a kid sitting there, and they look at him and they say, "Hey, he's probably old enough to have a couple of pubic hairs. Let's get him to eat bread with us a little bit, and we could have a mizumah."
okay.
It's different. Doesn't there? The criterion is not whether they know who Hashem is. Okay, let's keep going a little bit. And now we go along, we keep going, and we say, "V'lei tilchata kechol hanishmaita eliki hai da'amar Reb Nachman." And the halacha is not like any of these things that any of these criteria that we said. Oh, here we are. Here you are, Wendy. Yes, we just didn't get there yet. It's not, you don't look for 2 pubic hairs. You don't look for this, that, or the other. The halacha is not like any of those factors. Rather, katan hayodea lemim mevarchim mizamrim alav. Thank you, Wendy. That if there's a child who knows who you are blessing to, who Hashem is, basically, he can be included in the minyan. Excuse me that I forgot that it says it right here. So he can be included in the minyan, and I believe also you can say that with a Sefer Torah, Chumash, he can be included in the zimun. Sorry, and I believe that with a Sefer Torah, you can also include him in a minyan.
Oh.
So interesting, huh? Now, should I say it? You know that the conservatives, they include women in a mizumah, and that also has a source in the Mishnah. In other words, they didn't make it up. It has a source in a Mishnah. The reason you don't include women is because, you know, in the days when you might have had slaves, non-Jewish slaves at the table and everything like that, it was not sneistic for the women to be sitting at the table and so on. But now that we don't have that, so it's not a matter of tznius, so they include women in zimun, and generally that's only by the conservatives. But there are some Orthodox who may do it if it's just the family. You know, a father, a teenage son, and the mother, they may make a zimun on that, although it's adventurous halacha, but it's halacha that makes sense in the halachic system. Anyway, okay, let's leave it at that for today. Today is what? The 28th. And God willing, tomorrow we'll come back to our regular Baal Shem Tov and Rav Kook and the Gemara. If anyone has any questions or comments.
It's just that I still can't get in without ringing poor Sydney. I have to drive Sydney mad every day.
No, rather than driving Sydney mad, drive Neil mad. No, but, perhaps that wasn't the right way to say it.
I don't get mad. I do not get mad.
Okay, thanks, Sydney.
Oh, Sydney says he doesn't get mad? No, because this is Neil. We daven now at Neil's place in the morning. I think you know that. Shachrit. And you're welcome to come if you want. There's and I say to Neil, and we do every morning, I say, can you make it so people don't need a password to get in, so people can get in? And I thought he said he had done it today and done.
Oh, I've lost you. You've gone quiet, Chaim.
I go on the weekly Mizmor LeDavid newsletter, and it's always listed there, the code to get into Chaim's classes. So do you use that at all?
Yeah, but
I
I
have
just
the same problem. And I used the email from Neil, waar stond password. It's not necessary. You have to click here. Now, and this do it because yesterday I got once more email from Sydney with the link, and wachtwoord is Chaim, maar I couldn't get permission with you, Chaim. Sorry. I was
I'll tell Neil again. Neil is working on it, and
I don't understand.